G'day guys, welcome to the Unofficial Scorecard Podcast, a podcast where we talk all things boxing and occasionally the wider world of combat sports. This is episode 78, and on today's episode, guys, to deal with all the Tszyu and Zerafa fallout, unfortunately, but it was still a great chat anyway, I have got back for the third time returning mate of the show and the host and creator of Boxing Deep Dive. Amongst other things, Lynden Hosking is back. So guys, on today's show, we're not going to bury the lead. Straight off the top of the bat, we dive in deep to all the Tszyu Zerafa fallout. What's next for Michael? What's next for Nikita? What do we think might happen? From there, guys, as I just can't help myself, we had to get into a little bit of the No Limit / Foxtel pay-per-view validity. I sort of noticed a few things and a few recent trends over the last couple of years, got my calculator out, tried to do some maths, and also got Lynden's opinion. And I love getting Lynden's opinion on specifically this type of boxing business related stuff because he's done it before. He has the experience, you know. Me and most likely people watching or listening to this, we're just guessing. So Lynden sort of really puts his hand on my shoulder, calms me down, and gives me the answer. Maybe that I didn't want to hear or we want to hear, but probably the answer that is needed. So also, guys, we jump into Liam Paro and his exciting world title shot upcoming very shortly. We talk about the massive news that no one expected, Jai Opetaia signing with Zuffa Boxing. Who is Zuffa Boxing? How is all this going to work? We don't know, but we will discuss it. We also have a look at Zuffa Boxing's debut show, available globally on Paramount Plus app this week. And then we jump into, guys, a fantastic fight. Can't wait for it. Andy Cruz is challenging for the IBF Lightweight Title against Raymond Muratalla. Can't wait for that fight. So tune in to hear Lynden's thoughts on that. And also, ask Lynden what his hopes for Aussie boxing are in 26, what he would like to see Christmas time this year, and what's coming up with his channel Boxing Deep Dive, and much more throughout. Guys, it is always a ton of fun to speak to Lynden. Today's third time I've been able to chat with him is absolutely no exception to that rule. So guys, let's finish this intro and jump to that now. Alright, well here I am joined by a returning mate of the show. He represented Australia on the grandest stage of all at the Olympic and Commonwealth Games, started Hosking Promotions and put on some absolute banging cards as a promoter, then went on to create and host the most prolific and interactive boxing show on YouTube in Boxing Deep Dive for the third time. It's Lynden Hosking. Lynden, thanks for coming on, mate.
I appreciate the comments there. I wouldn't say I'm one of the leading YouTubers, but I just do my own thing. I try and be a little bit unique and have a bit of fun with it anyway.
No, absolutely, mate. Well, I stand by the compliments. I think they apply perfectly
Thank
here.
you.
So, as we were just talking about before we recorded, mate, you've been a very busy man this week, under demand from multiple platforms, and I've jumped in the queue. So I apologise for asking you probably what a lot of other people already have, but it's the dominant talking point on our sport in this part of the world currently. So we may as well not bury the lead and start at the top, mate. Nikita Tszyu, Michael Zerafa, there's a million ways to tackle it, a million places to go, but your thoughts straight off the top, Lynden?
Oh, look, what a bizarre night of boxing. I suppose that's the only way you can sort of look at it, can't you? But, yeah, look, it's been discussed ad nauseum since Friday night. And, look, I don't know, usually in these controversial type of situations, there's always different spins on it and different ways to look at it. But I just think in this instance here, there's no other way to look at it except for what most people think, and that is Michael sort of looked for the way out. I do feel for him in the backlash that he's gotten, but at the end of the day, he was the one that made the call. We've seen the interviews with the referee. Not sure. I think there was some comments from the doctor as well, but I mean, it all points to what we all saw on TV, and that is that the referee, the doctor asked Michael how he was going. He said, I can't see. The doctor and referee sort of looked at each other with like, what do we do here? And then the referee explained to Michael what was going to happen, and he nodded and said, okay. So, and then of course he went to center ring and held the arms out like, well, you know, what he's all complaining about. So look, I think it's not a moment. I mean, Michael's had a few of these moments during his career, but it's not a moment that he would look back and probably be proud of what he did. Now, I'm not saying Michael Zerafa is a quitter, by the way, because he's far from it as far as his career goes. But on this occasion, I got no doubt that he looked at it, looked for that little loophole to get out, looked to fight, another day. Not necessarily about the paydays and all that sort of stuff, but I think he's looked at it and went, you know what? I'm cut. He didn't know how bad the cut was, by the way, and I just think he's looked at it or thought about it in the spur of the moment and just looked for the way out. So it's not something he'll look back on fondly, but he's going to have to wear it.
So after the fight, the day after or maybe 2 days after, he released a photo with his eye fully swelled up, stitches, and said in there that there was damage to the eye socket and the retina. I'm sure I haven't heard anything since. Has there been any follow-up or any confirmation on that sort of under-the-skin damage, if you...
Well, the thing is, everyone's been asking for the X-rays and the doctor's report, and so far he hasn't released it. And I've spoken, I think I said on my video the other day, I've spoken to a couple of people that have had fractured eye sockets or shattered eye sockets, or whatever it was that he was saying he had the other day, and they said it does not look that way. Normally it sinks in, it swells, and it swells instantaneously as well. So when that normally happens, we saw it with Billy Joe Saunders, we've seen it along the line with others as well, even some footy players that it's happened to, and the swelling is immediate. Your eye shuts, and it just swells a different way. And Michaels just didn't look that way. After the fight, he looked completely fine, and even in the interviews afterwards, and even I think the photo he took when he was getting his eye stitched up, there was no sort of swelling there. It wasn't until later that he actually released the video with the swelling. And, I mean, there's even been allegations that it was AI. I don't know. I'm not putting those allegations on him, but that's what was sort of put out there. So, look, there are lots of people that have contradicted what he's had to say. And the fact that he hasn't released the X-rays or a doctor's report or whatever, I mean, what do they say? Where there's smoke, there's fire. I've just got my doubts. I just think they've sat down as a team, gone into damage control, and just thought, well, geez, what do we do to maybe defend ourselves a little bit here? And they've thought, well, all right, well, let's just put out a report that it was a fractured eye socket, and then that'll appease everybody. Well, people aren't stupid, and that's what's happened on this occasion. People have called him out. I would love him to actually come out and say, all right, smart asses, here's the reports, but this is 2 or 3 days ago since this has come out and still nothing. So again, if he's looking for even more ways to keep digging a hole, this is it. I've said in a few of the other things I've done that I didn't think Michael's reputation could go much lower than what it did, but Friday it sunk to a new low. And if this is proven to be wrong about his eye socket, well, he goes even further. So I'll give him credit. He keeps coming up with different ways to dig the hole deeper. When you think he's all out of shovels, he finds another one and away he goes. But, geez, I think we'll think at the moment, just lay low, let the dust settle for a week or so, and then come out. I did see the statement or read the statement. That's great. I want to see him on an interview on camera. I think Jay McAllister, who's been his main antagonist, has offered to actually interview him. Not sure what's happening with that, but I want to see him on camera and answering some questions from people instead of just releasing a statement.
Yeah, geez, he might have thrown the shovel away and gone for an excavator this time, but
I think he has. Yeah, good point. Yeah, he's no need for shovels anymore. He's digging his way to China the way he's going.
Exactly. But it was funny enough, yesterday morning or maybe Monday morning, I was driving to work and Mick Malloy does a breakfast show on Triple M in Melbourne. And, I'm a Mick Malloy fan, funny bloke. And funnily enough, they were talking about it. And, and not exactly in his prime fitness level older comedian that, as far as I know, has never stepped through the ropes, was pretty scathing in his criticism of Michael Zerafa, which really made me, hasn't he? Yeah, well, for the wrong reasons, but it really made me cringe. And I just feel like, and there's been so many negative opinions, and maybe rightfully so, excuse me, but it sort of reminds me of when Robesi Ramirez got his eye socket broken against, what's his name? The big tall guy, Rafael Espinoza. And on the American broadcast, Joe Tessitore just tore him to shreds, comparing him to all these other fighters that have fought through much greater risks and all that sort of thing. And again, I thought that was just way out of line. For me, I feel like fighters can criticize fighters for that type of thing. But, You know, I had 5 amateur fights and I lost 2 of them. You know, you guys are scuba diving at the bottom of the ocean. I dipped my toe in the kids' pool a couple of times. It's not even the same thing. I would never, ever, ever disrespect you guys by calling myself a fighter. So I sort of stay away from that. If you step through the ropes, you have my respect and admiration, and I don't need you to risk your life to, you know, appease my needs as a fan or anything like that. But the part for Michael, and you alluded to it, he sort of dug himself a hole and he tried to bullshit his way out of it. You know, that's the nicest way I can put it. And unfortunately, when you do that, you become the boy that cries wolf. And now everything you've ever said and everything you will say in the future is brought into question because you have, I don't want to say flat out lied, but, you know, you got yourself into a little situation. Emotions were high. Did they feel me? Did they hear it? Oh, I didn't say that. You put it the perfect way. He's just dug himself a hole he can't get out of. He's already the most hated man in the country. I've kind of been a Michael Zerafa supporter. I sort of still am. The guy is a proven warrior, except for this fight. Again, he's a fighter. He still has my respect and admiration for getting in the ring. I'll take him on his word for whatever that's worth now that there is more damage until proven otherwise, and I don't want the guy to go blind, but he bullshitted the country and you just can't come back from that. So that raises the next question, Lynden. What do you think happens with Michael going forward from here?
Oh, good question. First of all, mate, don't sell yourself short as far as getting in the ring, mate. Even though you only had 5 fights, it takes the same amount of courage to get in there than if you've had 100 fights. So don't worry about that.
I appreciate that, mate, but very different levels.
But it was levels, but it still takes the same amount of ticket to get in there. Don't worry. But as far as Michael goes, I don't know. I don't think he can go anywhere. I really don't. I think that, well, no limit. You saw George Rose after the fight. He was absolutely fuming to the point where he just said, look, I'm not going to comment. Let's just leave it at that. And he walked away. The press conference, he didn't say much either. He sort of sat there in silence, answered a few sort of questions, but without sort of going into depth. The word is that he's now had his contract ripped up or not renewed with no limit. And to be honest with you, like he's pretty much, I'm not going to say he's burnt a lot of people in Melbourne or around Australia, but he's had different relationships that haven't worked out. I'm one of them. I promoted, I think, 3 or 4 of Michael's fights. Not that I had a fallout with him anyway, in any way, but he moved on from me to someone else, to someone else, to someone else. He's had numerous trainers, numerous managers. I'm not sure where he goes on that front, let alone on the promotional front. I just don't know who's going to touch him. And even if one of the smaller type of promoters want to take him on, they're not going to have the money that it's going to be needed to invest in Michael to get the type of opponents to get him back to the top. There's only probably, apart from No Limit, one other promoter in Australia, and that's Tasman Fighters, who might have any way of getting those opponents in. Those small guys who have no TV and not many sponsors and are relying on ticket sales and table sales and sponsorship aren't going to be able to spend 100 to 150K, whatever it might be, to get one of these top guys out here for Michael to fight. Then if he goes overseas, he might be used up as, I suppose, someone down the lower ranks that are trying to use Michael to climb up the rankings. He's still ranked quite high in I think 2 or 3 of the organisations. You might get someone from Europe or America or whatever wants to fly him over so that their fighter can beat him and move up the rankings. That's probably about it. But as far as Australia goes, I feel for him, but I think he's done. I don't think anyone will touch him. And even if they do, the boxing public have said it in no uncertain ways or in uncertain terms that we don't want to borrow you. Just this is it. We sort of welcomed you back in, or not welcome, but we sort of let you in after the Tszyu fiasco. We let you sort of get back in after getting knocked out by Lara. You still had the audacity to be bad-mouthing Tim and Nikita and anyone else who you could get your hands on. Now we've let him back into a main event pay-per-view against Nikita Tszyu, and this is what's happened. So I think the fans have spoken. They will not back Michael Zerafa. And even if No Limit are sitting around today in their offices having a coffee saying, geez, ooh, yeah, this might be great for the rematch, I think someone in the room is going to have to come up and say, look, even if we do decide to go with the rematch, the Australian public just aren't going to buy it. And that's just the way it is. I would be staggered if they got a third of what they've got out of the Australian boxing public in this fight.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like one of the reasons I started this show a few years ago was because I just have no mates to follow the sport, and I always want to talk boxing. So you've got to start a pod or a YouTube show to do it. But
I was a bit the same. Sick of talking to yourself in the mirror. You may as well talk to on YouTube.
Exactly,
but that's what's great about. That's why I like to do my show where it's live, because I actually like to discuss boxing with people, and that's why I sort of go live rather than doing a podcast, because I actually like the live interaction. But everyone's different, I suppose. But yeah, as I said, it's better than talking to yourself in the mirror about what's happened.
Yeah, 100%, mate. That's why I said it's the most prolific and interactive boxing show on YouTube. So we've come full circle. But so I never get messages from my mates or anyone I know about boxing unless it's Jake Paul or something negatively embarrassing happens in Aussie boxing. So the last couple of weeks and few months, I've got tons of messages, but all for the wrong reasons. So, I think I agree. I think it's be very tough for Michael to come back from here. But we'll talk about the fight itself, Lynden. Leading up on this show, Anthony Cox and I did a pretty in-depth preview about a week before.
Good man, Anthony. Yep.
Great guy, legend. Shout out to the Aussie Boxing Scribe. I sort of settled on, I thought Zerafa would be too experienced. If he had, depending on his training team, he's always shown a great ability to follow a game plan, and he's always found success against guys that prioritize offense over defense. I feel like Nikita does that. So I tipped Michael for a 7th round stoppage. I thought he won the first in consensus with everyone else. Nikita won the second. But there's a lot of people that have thought, well, Zerafa couldn't handle the physicality. It was all going to be, Nikita starting the snowball, running down the hill. It was his fight to lose from there. I'm undecided. I have no idea what would have happened. I've said what I thought could happen. I felt like there wasn't enough of a fight to really judge how it was going to play out. How did you see this fight leading up to it, and how did you think it was going to play out before it was stopped?
I must admit, it's easy in hindsight. I never had a doubt that Nikita would win the fight. That's the way I sort of felt. The only way, and I was pretty vocal about this on my channel, is that the only way I thought Michael could win this fight is just by landing a big one early. And we saw it against Isaac Harbin. We've seen it against numerous others. I thought that was his only hope of winning against Nikita. I thought it was a stand-up, man against man, style against style, skill set against skill set. I didn't think Zerafa stood a chance, if I'm being honest. I thought Nikita... He's a very, very skilled guy, and I've always been, I won't say vocal, but I've always had the thought that I've never been high on Michael as far as being a real quality world-class fighter. Very, very good domestic fighter, and I've never considered him an elite world-level class fighter. And I've always thought Nikita has the ability to be that, but of course we've all seen in the flaws that he has, and things that he needs to work on with his defense and his composure and all that sort of stuff. But I just thought if Michael didn't land that early punch like he did against Harbin, and some of these other guys they've got in with him recently, I just thought if it was man against man that Nikita would win the fight clearly. Now in the first round, I must admit there's a couple of nervous stages where Michael did land a couple of good shots, and you're right, he did win the first round. But my feedback of that is that Nikita did not budge, did not blink, did not even look remotely concerned about being hit. Yeah, I think he got hit with 2 or 3 punches in a row at one stage, and I remember thinking, oh, geez. And the way he just sort of shrugged him, was that all you got, the way he looked at Michael? And Michael, as I said, won the round. But after the first round, I was very, very confident that Nikita would get to Michael. And in the second round, I thought Nikita dominated the round. I thought that he ragdolled Michael Zerafa. I don't think Michael had anything to offer Nikita that was going to get him in the fight and have a possibility of winning the fight, which could have actually contributed to his mindset. Geez, I've just hit this guy. He's throwing me around. He's powerful. I'm not sure I can go with him, so maybe I'll just take this opportunity to get out. I don't know. But after the fight stopped, even though it was only 2 rounds, I am more positive than ever that Nikita Tszyu would have stopped Michael Zerafa in 6 or 7 rounds. I got no doubt.
Damn. Okay. So... Damn, that's strong. I'd definitely go with your eye over mine, Lynden. So no issues there. But
there's always what ifs in boxing, and as I said, like if you had landed an early one, there was that worry that you could get to Nikita. But the way Nikita just pretty much shrugged his shoulders at him, and as I said, just said, well, was that all you got? I think Michael knew that he was in a fight, and Nikita's confidence, even though it was only the second round, grew in the second round. And as I said, mate, I had no doubt leading up to it. And after 2 rounds of them actually being in there and punching on, I have even less doubt that Nikita Tszyu would have stopped Michael, no problems.
Yeah, dang. So, in your opinion, if we assume that's the way that it would have played out, what do you do with Nikita next? So, obviously, it's a super weird situation, but let's just assume it had gone the way that most thought it would, and you just mapped out then. He gets a great win over a guy that was fighting for a world title 3 fights ago or whatever. What do you do with him now? Like, you can't really go back and maybe have a rematch with Dylan Biggs or fight someone low. Like, is it too early to step Nikita up to that regional / world level, or can you pull him back and get him to headline a pay-per-view on No Limit fighting someone with 8 or 9 fights in Australia? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I don't think they can step him up to the really elite level yet, and I think they know that. I think this is the consensus out there that Glenn Jennings and No Limit just want to throw him in there. Let's not forget he's had 12 fights now. We've had people that have had 12 fights or less have actually fought for world titles, so it's not like he's totally inexperienced. You see some guys these days after 16 or 17 fights, these are even the top guys. They're all ranked in the top 4 or 5 of the divisions or the sanctioning bodies. This is all this is almost the benchmark now is 16 to 18 fights before you're demanding a world title shot. So he's had 12. And unlike a lot of these prospects that come up, Nikita's first 10 fights, or it was even the discount the Zerafa fight, and even the one before that. So his first 10 fights, 8 of those fights were very, very hard fights for him, and they were learning curves. I know he had his issues in the fights, but he didn't have an easy entry into professional boxing. The Koa Mazzudias and Dylan Biggs and even the Benjamin Bombers of the world, he was supposed to test Nikita as well. So it's not like he hasn't had easy fights like a lot of these prospects do. So I think even though he's had 12 fights, I would almost equate that to 15, 16, 17 fights to a normal prospect coming up, because they haven't been easy. But I would think what they would do with him is say, all right, well, we are now going to step you up into the world scene, but we're just going to skim around the top 20. None of this top 10 stuff. Like they've done, well, most promoters do with their prospects. They go for those guys that are, I won't say journeyman, but around the mark. They might have had a good record years ago, or been a former champion, whatever it might be, and just go that way with him. I don't see the sense in going back and fighting the Dylan Biggs of the world. He's already beaten Dylan's very, very comfortably, even though Dylan's obviously gone on to some good things after that. But yeah, I don't think they stay in the Australian scene. I think they do go onto the world scene, keep him as a pay-per-view sort of star, but just bring in these types of guys that are around that top 20 mark and just ease him into it. And then maybe in 12 to 18 months' time, they say, all right, it's time to sink or swim. Let's go. You'll be 28 years old by that stage, and he's either going to make it or not by then. So I'd give him another 6 fights and then throw him in and see what he's got.
Yeah, man, it's going to be interesting. And it seems like if there is a winner, if you could call it that, it probably is Nikita. He's certainly got even more public support, at least from the mainstream too, who wouldn't have even known him before, I imagine. So, going to be interesting times for sure. But we'll just jump to the rest of the card, rest of the main card. We had a bit of a heavyweight tournament there, the 2 heavyweight fights. We had a rugby fight, which seems to be mandatory these days on a domestic pay-per-view. And opening up the card, Liam Wilson was back with a body shot stoppage. What were your sort of highlights from the undercard there, Lynden?
Yeah, I really like Liam. I was still staggered he was so far down the card, if I'm being honest. He should have been the co-main, if you ask me, but I get it. It's all structured a certain way for the TV audience. But Liam Wilson is top 3 or 4 ranked in a couple of organisations. He should have been the main support. But anyway, I thought he looked really good. Still got some things he needs to work on, but I was really, really impressed with that body shot. I think he has improved, even though he's got to work on a few things still, which is pretty hard with a fighter at his age. But I think they've worked on some things, and you could see it. I think his defense was slightly better. I thought his patience was slightly better. He didn't get caught up in that firefight that he has done in the past. So I thought he was really good, and that body shot was just beautiful, wasn't it? Just right in the liver. The other fights, I wasn't stressed about the heavyweight fight, whatever. The rugby player, could not care less. I knew exactly what was going to happen. It was always going to be a first-round knockout. So it was like, okay, all right, mate, you've had your highlight reel knockout. You've jumped on the ropes and beaten your chest like King Kong. All right, good stuff. back to the gym. But no, it was good, and I understand why they've got him on the card. The other two heavyweight fights were really good. I thought that. Now I keep getting mixed up. Now Vasilwatu, did he fight Dempsey or was the other one? Because there was Talivaha.
Yeah, Talivaha fought Stefanovic and Tszyu fought Dempsey.
All right. Well, Talivaha, I thought was maybe a little bit lucky not to get the decision. I thought it was really, really close. No arguments with Stefanovic getting the win, but I thought it could have gone either way. I thought that was a really good fight. And who just say Vasilwatu fought Dempsey.
Yep.
Yeah, no, look, just a good entertaining scrap. I don't think it really meant anything in the scheme of things. I don't think Dempsey McKean looked all that good in the fight. I thought he really struggled. And if he's going to look at being back to world level, I think he should have made it easier work of him. I think he got hit way too much. I thought it looked like to me two average fighters, and I say that respectfully, domestic level fighters just having a good scrap. That's all it really was. I don't think you can take anything out of it as far as saying Dempsey McKean's back on the world level, because he looked anything but, if you ask me. But it was entertaining. I didn't have one fight on the card that I was really looking forward to because Paro Donovan was off. That was the one I was really looking forward to. Once that got cancelled, I was like, yeah, okay. I wasn't fussed by any fight on the card. Intrigued to see how Liam would go, Liam Wilson. But apart from that, wasn't really stressed. But it was entertaining. If you just turned up to the fight night at the venue or even just watched on TV and you just wanted to watch a great night of fights, it was okay. But let's face it, we all tune in for the main event, and the main event didn't deliver. So it just puts a bad light over the whole show, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a top-heavy card, that's for sure. And I did some maths, so this is dangerous.
Okay, all right, go for it. Yep.
Depending, yep. I don't know how accurate this will be, but we'll see how we go. So, obviously, it was a $70 pay-per-view. I've been pretty vocal on this show for years that, it's just a joke how many pay-per-views there are. But anyway, let's let the numbers speak for themselves. So I just looked at No Limit in the last 3 years. So in 2023, they did 12 events, all within Australia. There was 5 pay-per-views and 7 events were free. In 2024, No Limit claim they did 11 events, but 2 of them were Tszyu pay-per-views on PBC shows, but they claim 11, so we'll give them what they claim. So they've done 11 events, 7 were on pay-per-view, and there were 4 free ones, but one of those was actually a wildfighter show. So there were 7 pay-per-views, 3 free events in 24. In 2025, they claim to have done 9 events, obviously with one being Zuffa 2, but we'll give it to them. So they've done 7 pay-per-views and 2 events were free. So year on year, they're doing less events and they're putting more on pay-per-view and they're offering less for free. So they've done 32 events in the last 3 years, 19 pay-per-views and 13 free shows. That's roughly 60% of their shows are pay-per-view. So 19 times 50 is $950, but we know that the pay-per-view price has stepped up in years to $60 and $70. So in the last 3 years, it's cost every person, if they watch every show, well over $1,000. That's pretty staggering.
Oh, it is, mate. Yeah, that's some really good figures there, and I'm with you. And it looks like the Don't Limit on Fox thing looks like it's dead in the water, because if you said they only did 2 shows last year. Look, and the thing is, I think the strange thing I looked at too, one of those pay-per-views was Sam Goodman and Mark Schleibs, which is, I think, probably the least deserving pay-per-view fight I think I've ever seen in my life. But then they put on the 2 Liams, and I think that was one of their free shows from memory, Liam Wilson and Liam Paro, which you think that would be a pay-per-view. So we'll just cancel one out for the other, I suppose, but it doesn't hide the fact that the No Limit on Fox events have gone by the wayside. I don't know whether that's by choice, or maybe Fox Sports aren't happy with the shows being put up, or maybe there's just no money to put them on, and No Limit are just saying, well, it's pay-per-views or nothing now. But I'm with you. I did see some of those events they put on the social media. These are all the events we've done, and I think, hang on, why are you claiming that the Tszyu fight in America is a No Limit show? It doesn't. When they had literally nothing to do with that except for putting the name on the poster. But yeah, it is a little bit disturbing. I sort of get it in this day and age that the promoters more and more have to do pay-per-views because the cost of putting on these fights is just out of control. And I do get that $70 is way too much for a pay-per-view, but having my promoter's hat on, I also know how much it costs to put a fight on, let alone something of that magnitude where both guys are getting 6 figures. So I get it. But it's not so much even just No Limit. It's across the board. You got to wonder where the sport is going. I actually read a really good article this morning about American promoters over there, how you got Top Rank, Golden Boy, and PBC, all with no TV deals. Although PBC now has a streaming deal with. Oh, hang on, did we lose you there? Still going? Yep, sorry.
Gotcha,
and
mate.
PBC, have the Paramount deal about to start. So, or has started. That was Amazon Prime. Sorry, they've been with those guys. So there is no HBO. There's no Showtime. There's no ESPN. These are all gone. So unless you're with a streaming service these days, you're in trouble. And you've got Turkey Al-Sheikh and Dana White sort of coming in. They've got all the big deals. Eddie Hearn's obviously got DAZN. But you got to wonder where the Golden Boys and Top Ranks and PBCs go if they have no TV deal. So I understand everything sort of costs money, but are we the same in Australia where we're going down the point where if you want to watch boxing, no matter on what platform, you're going to have to pay for it? There will be no free events for us as far as boxing goes. And I think we've just got to face that. And in some respects, we are also our contributing to it ourselves because we continue to pay. And as long as we continue to pay, they're going to continue to charge us for them. Unfortunately, I just think going forward, the days of anything free will be done and dusted. Even the smaller promoters will be charging us $20, $30 to watch their shows. And I think we're going to have to get used to it.
Yeah, the reason I sort of went back and worked all that out was, it's just so staggering. Like, obviously, I used to blame No Limit all the time, but now I've sort of come around and it's like, well, maybe this is the Foxtel terms. They're like, hey, we're going to give you this many days, but we need some money back. So X amount of shows have to be pay-per-view. So I get it. Maybe it's not No Limit's fault. So I hate Foxtel. Stuff those guys. But but the point being, like, no other sport does this. There is no other. Every other sport starts small, takes itself seriously, grows naturally by putting itself in front of as many eyeballs as possible, generating as much fan. But the more fans and eyeballs you get to it, the bigger, more high profile sponsors you can get to the sport who will then contribute money and all these types of things. It's only boxing, and everyone always says that's just how it is. There's no other way to do it, but no one's never really tried. And I feel like my whole annoyance with it is I feel like Australia is so unique that we do have a really robust yet very small boxing industry and boxing community, fans and such. I feel like we're robust enough to be able to try something new and then revert back if it doesn't work. I guess Ace Boxing tried that with the Premier Series on 7+, and then that didn't really work. But at least they tried, Yeah. It's just so weird. Like, the NBL, I probably not many people know much about basketball, or maybe they know more than I do, but the NBL was down and out 10 years ago. Like, it was a garbage league. A bloke called Larry Kesselman bought it, poured millions of his own dollars into it, Turkey Al-Sheikh style, built it up, never asked for $1 for the fans. Now it's a top 5 league in the world. Like, you can't tell me it can't be done, but no one will try. In your opinion, Lynden, you've fought, you've promoted, you've sponsored fighters, you've experienced the sport in many more ways than a lot of us listening or anyone else listening and watching this, certainly me. Do you think it's actually even possible to do that, or is this current pay-per-view method really our only option?
I think it's our only option, mate. And the reason is because what you got to look at is that the NBL and even on the bigger scales, the NBAs, look, even just here in Australia, you look at AFL, NRL, the NBL, or I don't know much about the basketball side of things, but let's just say AFL and NRL. Now, the thing is, they are like the networks buy the television rights. So they give the leagues a massive amount of dollars, and then that's for, I suppose, the right to obviously air the sport. And there's massive amounts of TV advertising and sponsorship and all that they get in return from doing that. The problem with boxing is no one buys the rights to boxing. It's almost on a fight by fight basis, which is why we have pay-per-view. But the broadcasters aren't paying the promoters for the rights. The consumers are paying the promoters for the rights. So in effect, it's the same sort of model, but it's not the broadcasters paying for it. It's us. And that's because boxing hasn't got the following. It hasn't got the sponsorship. It hasn't got the viewers that are, or the businesses that want to pay to advertise during boxing. So I think it's just the way of the lay of the land is that going forward, boxing will just become a pay-per-view sport on all levels. And as I said, it's because those bigger sports have the broadcasters paying hundreds of millions of dollars for TV rights, which is why they can spread the money over a lot of different areas. Boxing just hasn't got that. You haven't got one organisation. You've got all these different promoters all with their hands out, and the broadcast, which is why, by the way, they went with No Limit. They didn't want to have people like me and Will Tomlinson and Angelo DiCarlo and Tony Tolge and everyone trying to get their hands on TV broadcast deals. So they just went with one that they had the most confidence in, and they've given them all the money and all the, as I always say, the keys to the Ferrari. And now it's all up to No Limit. So I don't know, mate. I just think across the board, and as I said before, we're seeing it overseas with what's happening in the American scene as well. England's apparently a little bit the same. So we're just a knock on of that. So unfortunately, I don't see, and we saw it actually with Angelo DiCarlo with the PB, what was it? What was that called? The
PBS?
PBS,
Premier Boxing
Great
Series.
Concept. I thought the fight cards were good. I loved the shows they put on. I loved everything about it. I think it was successful. The numbers would have been good. And guess what? Channel 7 still said, nah, we don't want it. We're going to move on. We're going to take that money and give it to football or basketball or cricket, whatever it might be. So that's the difference. So as good as that concept was by Ace Boxing, it still didn't work. So, and I thought the Angelo DiCarlo shows were 10 times better than the No Limit on Fox events they put on, and it still got cancelled. So that tells you that Main Event and Foxtel and Channel 7 and Channel 9, they've all had a crack at it, and they've all ended up turning their back, which shows you that the executives at those networks aren't interested in boxing, especially the mainstream channels, 7, 9, and 10. They can't even get it on secondary channels anymore. Even Foxtel, who just said, look, I can't be bothered with all this shit. We'll just give it to No Limit and forget about it. So, that goes to show you where boxing is in the way of thinking and the priorities. And, mate, it's just not top of the tree. In Australia, you got NRL, AFL, the cricket. Geez, there's 10 sports in front of boxing before we ever get going. They're the ones that each year those sports need more and more money to exist. All the players are getting paid more and sponsors are putting in more money. So what do they take it away from? Those bottom tier sports like boxing say, guys, you're on your own. So that's where I think we're at, mate. And I hate to break the news to everyone out there, but get used to it, because I think every single boxing event going forward in the next sort of 5 to 10 years, you'll be paying for in one way or another. That's just the fact of life, and we have to get used to it. I don't like it, by the way, but it is what it is.
Mate, I don't love the answer, Lynden, but I appreciate you breaking it down. Like I said, you're sort of uniquely positioned to, be able to tell guys like me who just sit on the couch and, I've never seen the books. I don't understand the financial behind it. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Well, having been there with Dean Lonergan with the MBS, which was another great idea that fell over because of COVID. I think we did 6 shows or something amongst myself, and there was the guy in Canberra. There was someone in Brisbane and Sydney as well. And great concept, and it fell over because of COVID. But if that didn't work, I don't think anything can work, if I'm being honest. But as I said, it is what it is, mate. And we move on.
That's all right. I'll break down the numbers in another couple of years and we'll figure out how much we're out.
Well, hopefully, look, it'd be great if there was a boxing fan that took control of one of those stations, but I think it's showing that they just don't see the return in boxing. It's more hassle than what it's worth. And you put yourself in an executive position. Let's just say you work at Channel 7 and you're in the sporting department. You go, right, we've got all this budget to spend. Geez, I'm a bit of a boxing fan. I like to, I've seen the Fenix and, the Tysons of the world come through, and I wouldn't mind having a look at boxing. Let's see if we can make it work. Mate, look at last Friday night's fight. Do you really want the drama involved in boxing and the backlash and all the waste of money that happened on Friday? Do you really need the aggravation? So I'd be saying, no, what? I'm a boxing fan, but I don't need that. There you go. We'll give a few more millions of dollars to rugby and football. So that's the way of thinking.
No, I hear you, mate. No, I appreciate you taking the time to break that down, Lynden. And it's not the reality we want moving forward. By the way, but no, mate. Well, like I said, you're in a position. I can rant stuff about I don't even know about. That I'm assuming you actually have a background and experience in this exact topic. So, no, I appreciate you breaking it down for all us that.
Sorry to interrupt you as well. I've sort of thought process before when I was talking about the NBS, the way it works is that what it used to happen was that Foxtel would have a sum of money. Let's just say it's $100,000. They would then give it to the promoter, and that would pay for the whole event. So it makes it very, very profitable for the promoter. The networks, it costs $100,000, and everyone's happy. They get content and good cards and everything else. That's the way it works, or the way it works. Now that $100,000, they're obviously just taking that and putting it into other avenues. They obviously tried it with No Limit, with the No Limit on Fox events. I don't think they would have been happy with what they got with those events, and they probably just said, well, that's $100,000 or $150,000 or whatever it might have been that we can spend somewhere else, which is why now it's all pay-per-view, because it's no risk for Main Event and Foxtel. There's no risk for them whatsoever, because all they do, because if it's $70 for a pay-per-view, 35 of that goes to Main Event. They, of course, do the production, but they get half the money, so they have no risk as far as the event goes. They do not lose money, which is why they would be encouraging No Limit to say, well, rather than us giving you $150,000 and just crossing our fingers that you make us some money, no, you just go all in with your pay-per-views, and that way we are guaranteed to make money, or at least cover our costs. And that's why I think, again, why we're going down that path.
Yeah, good business, bad for the sport, but that's the way it is. But onto more encouraging topics, Lynden. Liam Paro, as you mentioned, was supposed to be on that card. Paddy Donovan got crook, was unable to fly out to Australia and compete. And it looks like now Liam Paro is in the negotiation period to fight Lewis Crocker for the IBF title. Well, what do you think the likelihood is that we see that fight, and how do you like Liam's chances?
I think it'll definitely happen. I think it'll be enforced. That's one good thing I'll say about No Limit. They always get their fighters opportunities, always. Even when you think the fighters in question are nowhere near the position of getting a world title fight, they've managed to land it. You know, we saw Liam Wilson against Navarrete. We saw Sam Goodman with Nick Ball. Even Tszyu getting the shot against Muratalla after coming off the loss to Fundora. And then even better, getting the shot against Fundora the second time after 2 fights before being obliterated by Muratalla. So I'll give him full credit for that. So they'll get this done. And I wouldn't be surprised if they get the fight here in Australia. They're up against Eddie Hearn, who's not going to make it easy for them. But I wouldn't be surprised if they bid really hard to get that fight in Australia. I don't think Eddie Hearn's that stressed about it. He's got so much going on in the world at the moment. He might go, you know what, this is a fight that we don't really need to put on ourselves. They're looking at all these other guys at the moment. So I wouldn't be surprised if No Limit go hard, maybe overbid to get the fight here, to try and maybe wipe a little bit the egg off their face as far as last week's event goes. I actually did say, too, what they should be doing is bidding for Andrew Maloney's world title fight against Willibaldo Garcia as well, just to add a cherry on top. But, I'm really happy with Liam. I think he can definitely win. He's obviously a very, very, very talented guy, former world champion. Lewis Crocker, I think, is probably an easier fight than Paddy Donovan would have been. I think Donovan would have been a lot harder guy, and I think he can win it. The big challenge, of course, is just getting it all across the line and ticking the boxes. But I think if they do get in the ring, particularly in Australia, Liam Paro can definitely win that fight.
Yeah, I like the matchup too, and it's certainly a winnable fight for Liam, absolutely. But what did you make of Liam's performance against David Papo last time out?
Yeah, I wasn't that impressed by that performance. And I think Liam's sort of said himself that it wasn't his greatest effort in the ring. I think obviously the eye was a bit of an issue, but I think Papo just turned up and was a lot more than what we expected, especially Team Paro. I think he was more surprised than all of us. Like, wow, this guy actually came to fight. Because I saw a fair bit of Papo on YouTube beforehand. I thought, there's no way this guy is going to be a chance against Liam. Liam's just far too skilled, punches too hard. Papo looked like he was feather-fisted, but on the night, he actually put them together really well. And I thought he had Liam in trouble a couple of times. I think also that was Liam's first fight at 147 as well. I think he'll grow into the frame a lot more. I think you'll see a lot better performance from Liam Paro. And sometimes it's hard to explain to people, but sometimes elite level fighters like Liam, they need something like a big challenge or a big fight or a title on the line to really get themselves up. I don't think you can excuse Liam for maybe taking Papo a fraction lightly. So, I think he'll be switched on for a world title fight, and who wouldn't be? Unless Michael Zerafa, when he said he was going to be out of there in 5 minutes against Andy Lara, which I cannot get my head around. But, I think Liam will be fine, and I think he's, as I said, a massive chance to win that fight.
Yeah, so I sort of went on about it on the last pod, so I won't bore everyone again. But yeah, I was very similar impression with Liam, which really surprised me. Knowing Alfie DiCarlo is such a sort of fundamental based trainer, just seeing like the low right hand, constantly moving into the left hand. I don't think he fought a southpaw very well, ironically, for being a southpaw. But it sort of begs a bigger question, and I can't think of anyone better to ask than yourself, Lynden, that it seems like guys, and I'm generalizing largely, but we see it happen all the time. You know, they sort of follow the basics on the way up. They're nice and tight. They limit the holes. Their defense is pretty good. They're, tucking the chin behind the shoulder, all those type of things you're supposed to do that you learn from a kid. They win a world title, then they start breaking all the rules. Then they want to drop the hand and do the shoulder roll. And we see it all the time, and I felt like Liam sort of fell into that trap. And as you pointed out, I didn't even think of it. Maybe it was a little bit to do with him not being able to fully get motivated for that fight potentially as well, going in a little bit mentally switched off or whatever. But more broadly, why don't guys dance with the girl they came with?
That's a really good point, actually, and good question. You do see it, and I think we've all maybe pointed the finger at Tszyu as well. You remember when he first started, very, very calculated, very methodical, very calm, poised, and composed, and nice and tight, and would really pick his shots. And when he sort of got past Ocampo and Harrison and Mendoza, then started to be a bit more freewheeling and ended up getting himself in trouble. But it's a really good question. Look, maybe the belt, even though it makes them probably walk a little bit taller, makes them all also maybe a little bit or forgetting those fundamentals. But I don't know. I can't answer the question because every fighter is different. But it's a good point that you do see fighters who tend to stray away from what actually got them there. And look, maybe they just try a few different things. Maybe they just think they're a little bit better than what they are because they've got the belt around their waist. Maybe they don't rate their opponents as highly as they should and think, well, I've got the belt. I don't need to do those fundamentals as well as I used to. But it's a really good point. And I suppose you just have to ask those fighters directly. But Liam definitely in that last fight, I think he did go away from what got the win over Matthias a little bit. And it just comes down to, I think, the way you rate your opponent. I think if he gets in with Crocker, you'll probably see Liam go back to the Paro that fought Matthias, not the one that fought Papo. So I think it just comes down to the level of respect they have for the opponent. I suppose is the best answer I've got.
Yeah. Oh, no, I've got no answer. So, no, I appreciate you sharing. But we'll move on to some more exciting news for Australia's other best fighter. Jai Opetaia has signed with the fledgling Turkey Al-Sheikh-backed Zuffa Boxing, who, funnily enough, are putting on their first ever event this coming weekend. But we're an Aussie-based show. We're biased as hell, or at least I am. So we'll talk about Jai to begin with. I did not see this signing coming. What did you make of it when the news broke a few days ago, Lynden?
I was really surprised. I do talk to Mick Francis every now and then, and I haven't spoken to him for probably a couple of months. Actually, it was before Jai's fight. Was that December 6th? I think it was, probably a few weeks before that. But it come out of the blue for me. Knowing Mick the way I do, I think this would have not been an easy decision. They would have wanted every box ticked. They would have sat down and gone over everything. It's a big call because when you think about it, Zuffa, whatever the hell it's called, it is fledgling, and they don't really have, well, as far as I know, a proper structure just yet. So it would have been a very, very hard decision from Mick and Jai. But at the end of the day, whatever they've put the spiel to them, it's obviously been accepted. I think it's a great call from all parties. I think it's great from Zuffa to look at someone like Jai. Very, very obviously capable world champion, but he's not a superstar around the world. Could be potentially part of some big fights going forward. So I think it's a great get. And as for Jai, look, I think what's happened here is Zuffa's maybe over-invested a little bit in Jai for starters, and maybe offered him a little bit more money than what they might offer other fighters down the track. They want to get a few big fish for starters. So I don't blame him for taking it. The big question, of course, though, is what happens to his IBF belt, because Zuffa said they're only going to recognise their own belt and the Ring Magazine belt. So that's got to come into it. But I've got a feeling, I said the other night on my show, I've got a feeling that they might have a grace period where they do allow fighters to come in and fight for belts, and they'll just phase them out as they go. But it's a big call. I've got no doubt there's a lot of zeros involved, and I think Jai will be the first of many. There is actually talk that Alexander Usyk might be next, so keep a look out for that one as well. Yeah, well, he's looking for a big American promoter. He's gone away from Turkey Al Sheikh, even though this is still sort of part of that. But he wants to be based in America. He wants to fight there, have an American-based promoter. And the word is that they have had talks with Dana White. So who knows what might happen there. They might have Usyk and Jai Opetaia, and all of a sudden they're away. I mean, I was laughing at him a few weeks ago with Campo and Walsh fight, and now they could have the heavyweight and cruiserweight world champions in their stable. So I suppose we'll keep an eye on that.
Things move quick in this sport, but have you kept much of and the reason I ask you because your weekly show that's all the news topics. I imagine you've kept it pretty good for the last couple of months. Eye on the whole Zuffa, Dana White, UFC, Turkey, Al Sheikh thing. I really haven't. I'm not an MMA guy. I only know a little bit about it. I mean, if you type in Google Dana White Mexico nightclub, that reveals all you need to know about that guy's character. So I'm not a fan. But what do you make of it? Do you think it's going to be successful? I mean, the first show coming up this weekend, I mean, on paper, records-wise, if you look at it on BoxRec, looks pretty good. So we'll see how we go. But what have you made of it the last few months and into this debut show, Lynden?
Look, my initial thoughts were the fact that Dana White and Turkey Al Sheikh were involved, then it's got a massive head start. I mean, it's got a turbo boosted engine behind it to get it going. My biggest concerns were the fact that you got an established industry, an established business. Now, this is not UFC. I know MMA was around, but Dana White was the first one to sort of pull it all in and almost operate it like a WWE type of setup with one belt in-house, all these shows they put on and the numbers and all that sort of stuff. So I get that. But my biggest concern query was, how does he do that in boxing? Now, boxing is very flawed. It's all over the place in a lot of areas, but it is established. There's 150 years, whatever, in history of boxing. You got all these different promoters out there, all the different belts, all the different broadcasting networks and streaming networks, all of these different things. It's all fragmented, but it's established. How do you then create something and say that it's only going to be in-house, we're only going to acknowledge our own belt and the ring belt, all our fighters only fight each other, and you got all the biggest fighters off with Golden Boy or Eddie Hearn or whatever it might be? How do we bring those all in to fight each other? And I still have those doubts, but geez, the fact that they've got Jai Opetaia and maybe Alexander Usyk goes to show that they've obviously sold it really, really well to those guys. Again, I still don't know how it happens down the track, but obviously whatever they've said to those guys has sparked their interest, and Jai has actually signed. I think, look, I'm still very, very doubtful, but the fact that those two guys are in it, and think of Dana White what you will, all the stuff outside, that's fine. But as far as a business person in this industry goes, he's proven he's a winner, and you would think that at some way he's going to make it work.
Yeah, man, it's certainly interesting. I mean, and we'll talk about the world title fight on the weekend coming up in just a sec too. Raymond Muratalla and Andy Cruz. I can't wait to get your thoughts on that, to get back to the fights themselves, Lynden. But interestingly enough, both the Zuffa card and the Matchroom card with Muratalla and Cruz both have 8 fights. Just as a comparison, I just thought this might be an interesting point. In the Zuffa show, there's an undefeated guy in every fight on the card, and everyone's combined record is 227 wins and 9 losses. I mean, that's not a bad place to start. Who knows what the fights will be like? On Eddie Hearn's show, there's 6 undefeated guys out of the 8 fights, and their total combined record for all the fighters is 161 and 14. But you are getting a higher world level. So I just thought that was an interesting note. It's interesting enough to get me to sort of tune in on Saturday, whack on Paramount Plus app, and check it out. It should be interesting.
Yeah, I'll definitely check. Yeah, I'll definitely be checking it out, and I think the events will be solid. The thing is, too, I was a little bit dubious the fact that they've the first main event with Campo and Walsh is a little bit, are you kidding me? You're actually going to have this as your first main event, but that sort of gives you the impression that it's going to be a slow build, and they'll start adding the Jais and Usyks and that as they go and eventually get their stable in place. But I'll be checking it out as well. I think the show itself will be very, very well run. It'll be very UFC-ish, I suppose, the way they run it. But there's nothing wrong with that because they do it so well. So, yeah, I think it's going to be fantastic. The Eddie Hearn show as well, obviously, what's his name? Muratalla, yeah. And Cruz. Looking forward to that as well. Yeah. Should be a rip. I'm really interested to see how Andy Cruz goes after only a handful of fights, how he can handle it. So we'll see.
Well, let's get into it, Lynden, because I'm a massive Andy Cruz fan.
Mm.
Obviously, I didn't follow him throughout his entire amateur career, but obviously the last Olympics, and he fought Harry Garside and just absolutely blew
Yep.
my mind. One of the best amateurs I've ever seen.
Yeah.
What have you made of him through that back end of his amateur career and into the pros?
Well, I remember seeing him fight Harry Garside, and I think, geez, well, it didn't surprise me because Cubans have always been great amateurs. Ever since I was around, they were the best. But yeah, I'm very, very impressed. And even though, is it Muratalla? I've never pronounced
I just try and
Muratalla.
copy what they say on the commentary, and they say Muratalla. But I might have
Muratalla.
that wrong.
Okay.
I
All
might have
right.
that
Well,
wrong.
either way, I think Muratalla is a very, very good fighter. I think he'll definitely give as good as he gets, but I've just got a feeling this will be Andy Cruz's coming out party. I think he'll win a decision, and I think we might have a new sort of, well, I won't say a star, but a new dawn of the lightweight era. I really think it won't be easy because Muratalla is a very, very good fighter. But Andy Cruz is class, mate. He'll win that fight, and I think he'll be the dominant lightweight sort of going forward. Depends if Shakur Stevenson stays at 140 after the TO fight or whatever. But I think Muratalla will be the person to beat in the lightweight division Cruz will be the guy to beat for some time at lightweight, I would think.
Yeah, I'm the same, and I feel like this is similar to your point about Liam Wilson, Liam Paro, and David Papo. Jesus, they're testing us with the names at the moment, aren't they? Similar with Andy Cruz, I think putting him in front of a guy like Muratalla, who's a real slick operator, undefeated, can punch, like world-class guy, I think that's only going to bring Andy's level up. And I said on the last pod too, I'm similar to you. I think Andy Cruz is going to blow our mind on Sunday Australian time. So, no, I absolutely can't wait. Interestingly enough too, Israel Madramov's back at middleweight on the undercard.
Oh, you see, I didn't know that. No, I'll have to check that out too.
He's fighting a guy who's 20-1 from Mexico, but if you have a look at his record, he hasn't fought anyone. But I mean, that's fair enough. Comeback fight. How do you think? I never thought Israel was like a real big dude at sort of junior middle. How do you think he fares at 160?
Yeah, maybe it's just a comeback fight or whatever, but I'm with you. I didn't think he was a big 154-pound fighter, let alone 160. So maybe they just don't think there's any opportunities there for him at 154 at the moment, and they want to step him up to 160 to see maybe they might get an easier shot at a belt because what is there? So you got Zayos and Barao are going to fight, so they're off the table for the next sort of 6 to 12 months. You got Muratalla about to fight Kelly. So Fundora is going to fight Thurman, so maybe they're thinking, well, it could be at least 12 months before we get a shot at the title if we're lucky. So maybe we'll go to 160 and we might get an easier shot at it against a Lara or a Janabek or Adamez. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he goes. He's a talented guy. I think he was made to look a little bit better than what he is against Crawford, because Crawford, you could just tell, was almost yawning in between rounds. He was that uninterested in the fight. So I think he was made to look better than what he is. And Ortiz, even though that was a good fight with Ortiz, I still think it showed that he's probably just around the perimeter of the top 10, not necessarily in that top 5. Probably, from that sort of 6, 7, 8 onwards, not in that top 5. So, it'd be good to see him back. But, more will be sort of shown as he goes on if he can hack it at 160.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And just a couple more, but we'll finish it up soon, Lynn. I don't want to take too much more of your time, mate. I appreciate you having a chat with me again. Mate, it's kind of a hard question, but if you had maybe not necessarily a crystal ball, but, Aussie boxing, well, we'll go back to the Aussie point of view because we're biased Australians, or at least I am. The year didn't start great, as we sort of went through at the start, so we won't rehash it. But what are you hoping to see from the sport throughout 2026? Like, are there a couple of sort of marquee pillars in your mind that you want the sport to sort of ascend to, or more of sort of a general sort of feeling once we hit sort of Christmas time next year? Like, what do you want out of the sport for this year from an Australian perspective? Yeah,
you're right. We haven't got off on a good note with what happened last Friday night, and it's probably unfortunate for Michael that it happened mid-January. There's nothing else to talk about as far as boxing goes, so all the attention's been on that fight, and there's no sort of fights there are fights this weekend, but not in Australia. Nothing for Aussie fight fans to sort of get distracted about. But yeah, it wasn't a great start. Look, more than anything, I want the Aussies to maybe be a little bit more successful in their fights this year. Because, I mean, apart from the girls who had a great 2025, it wasn't a great year for the guys. Yeah, it wasn't a great year. Liam Paro lost his world title, obviously, with what happened to Tim. The Maloney's weren't really around at all. George Kambosos lost as well. So there was it Sam Goodman lost as well. Yeah. So we didn't really have a lot of success in the ring. So I'm really hoping that I'm sure we'll get the opportunities we had last year, and it's already happening now. Sam Goodman and Liam Wilson will get shots, you would think, at some stage. Liam Paro is going to get a shot. Andy Maloney will get a shot. I would expect that Jason Maloney gets another shot at some stage as well. George Kambosos maybe. So I think our fighters will get opportunities. I would just like to maybe see a little bit more success. That's what I would like, and to maybe mirror what the girls are doing. Now, I understand the men's goes a hell of a lot deeper than the women's do as far as the quality goes, but still the women's are just killing it at the moment with Sky Nicholson and Shanika Johnson and Desley Robinson and Kay Scott. So they're all firing. So, as I said, I think we'll get as many opportunities as we did last year. I just want to see some more wins on the board because apart from the girls, I don't think we really had any success for the males last year. The other thing I'd probably like to see is maybe more domestic level fights, some really good fights being made, and maybe that's the way No Limit sort of gets back into the good graces is go to those Australian rankings. Say, all right, well, we're going to pay some good money to have some good guys fight each other. They all talk about fighting each other, but they rarely ever do. You got everyone now asking for a fight with Nikita or someone like that. Well, how about we get a Joel Camilleri? I know he's already fought Carl Mazzuti, but let's get it. Mazzuti are in with the bigs, and let's get a Camilleri in with a Mahoney, and all these types of fights that we could possibly get. And that's just a couple. Dempsey McKean in with Terramona Jr. or someone like that. Spend the money on that. That's what I would probably like to see more. Is some more money being spent on big domestic level shows because there's nothing better, I think, for Aussie fight fans and what we all want is Aussies versus Aussies. It's great when we bring in the imports, but let's face it, most of the imports they actually bring out here are just lesser lights. They're easy pickings. They very rarely even give a fight, let alone have a chance to win. So I would love No Limit or even Tasman to really invest in domestic level fights to really get the interest in from Aussie boxing fans. And I think that's the way you make the sport grow in Australia as far as viewership goes, rather than just relying on these really top-heavy big fights featuring Tim or Nikita or one of those guys. They have done really well in the past, No Limit, but I reckon they've gone away a little bit of the quality they used to have when they first started with the undercards. And sometimes it's the A side versus a lesser B side. Remember when they first started, they were always 50-50 fights, or at least 55-45 or whatever. Now I just think they've gone down the track a little bit of maybe the A side and then a C side sort of thing. So that's what I'm looking for, mate. More success in the ring and some more money being thrown at domestic level fights. That would be great,
mate. I love it. I hope those wishes come true because that would be sensational. And finally, Lynden, your show, Boxing Deep Dive, mate, and you specifically and more broadly too. You've always, and I mean this as a compliment, I think you think outside the box. For a lot of boxing people, you're always doing something a little bit different. And again, just from the outside looking in, you always seem to be like working on doing something different or putting a twist on something or starting something that no one else has done. So maybe if you are working on stuff, you don't want to give it away yet. But what are the plans for Boxing Deep Dive and your channel and your presence in boxing throughout the year as well, more personally?
Yeah. No, thanks for that. One thing I've always sort of prided myself on is just not doing the usual thing. So, like, as you said, thinking outside the box, and this is why I'd like to have a bit more time to do more things. I used to do a lot more stuff, in previous years where I do proper, episodes and have the footage and all that sort of stuff. But I've sort of run out of time. So, apart from the Monday night thing, which I love to do, it's 2 hours of just talking with boxing fans, which I love. The walking boxing one is definitely out there. I don't think anyone's sort of done that before, where they're talking about the daily events while walking their dog, but that's been really well received as well. I wouldn't mind doing a few more things if I had time. But one thing, as I said, I've really prided myself on is just doing things. I've always, even just in business as well, if everyone goes left, well, I'm going to go right and just think of something and give fans something, or people that are interested in boxing, just something a little bit different to being, whether even like what you do with a podcast or being a reporter. I often get asked why when I go to all the events, I'd love to do a lot more of that, by the way, is go to a lot more events and just cover my experience. But I always get asked a lot, why I don't interview people and that sort of stuff, because I'll repeat, I don't want to be a reporter. It's not my thing. Okay. I don't want to go and stand in line with my microphone and ask questions. I like to cover my experiences and just bring fight fans along for the journey. That's probably my main thing. So if I was going to add anything and do more of it, it would be getting away more often to document my experiences and bring fight fans along for the trip. And then a few other bits and pieces as well. But that's probably about it, mate. You're right. I am always thinking of different things to bring fans, different content. I mean, well, you know yourself, there's a million podcasts out there. There's a million reporters. Every time I go to a fight, there's another 4 or 5 people with microphones in their hands. I know and I take my hat off to those guys, I will say, but it's a tough gig. They put in a lot of time and effort, and it's just not my thing. I have no desire to stand there and interview somebody. It's just not what I want to do. So I'll keep thinking of different things to come up with. But in the meantime, I was doing my walking boxing and talking boxing and that sort of stuff, and anything else I can think of. But I really appreciate the support and the comments, mate.
Oh, for sure, mate. No, well, that's cool. Wishing you all the best for 2026. And it's very similar, a bit self-indulgent, but I'll just be quick. I have the same thing. People say to me all the time, like, why don't you get fighters on? I'm like, well, I want to know all the things they won't tell me publicly. So then I just got to think of all these questions I don't care about. And like, to be honest, I want to talk about fights. I don't want to talk to fighters, So I could sort of understand where you're coming from there a little bit.
And that's
I wouldn't
the thing
want to be
too,
a reporter
mate.
either, So.
No, well, they do a great job, as I said. But if you think about it, I mean, let's just take Nikita Tszyu, for example. Well, it could be you, it could be me, and standing in line to get an interview with Nikita. Is he really going to give you or me a different answer to a question he's just given the 10 blokes before us? You know what I mean? So that's why I think as a boxing fan, I'm looking at it. Okay, well, I've seen 6 different interviews with the same questions being asked, the same answers. Do I really want to add my 2 cents to it? So that's why I sort of take a step back and let them do it, and just think of different ways to have a different view, bring a different view and perspective to people out there. And even when I was interviewing people, I didn't want fighters on there. I didn't want the Tszyu and Jai Opetaias, because they've been interviewed 100 times. I wanted their managers. I wanted their trainers. I wanted the cut man. I wanted the whoever it was around them for a different perspective, which is why I always, instead of going to Tszyu, I always went to Glenn Jennings, because I wanted his view. Yeah. Tim gave his view to 10 or 20 other people. I wanted to hear from Glenn Jennings. This is before Glenn became a bit of a star, by the way, and ended up being on every single podcast out there. And he's great with giving his time. But this is in the early days where we didn't really get much out of anyone apart from Tim. And I found it so much more fascinating talking to Glenn and other members of his team rather than Tim, because you just get a whole new perspective that you don't get from Tim. So look, each to their own, but as I said, as a boxing fan, I just want different perspectives rather than just getting the same old answers to the same old questions.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Well, all the best for Boxing Deep Dive and the channel more broadly, mate. Walking Boxing as well in 26, Lynden, and fingers crossed those wishes for Aussie boxing come true, because I agree with you 100%, mate. But thanks again for the time. Well, hopefully we can do it at a later stage, Lynden. But just stay on the line, mate, because it'll take just a minute or two to upload. But thank you again, mate. Enjoyed the chat as always.
Zach, and you're doing a great job, mate. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, mate. All right, guys, and that was my chat with Boxing Deep Dive creator and host Lynden Hosking. As always, a ton of fun and super educational as well. I always learn heaps when I talk to Lynden. I really appreciate that Lynden sort of doesn't get all... I would say I get outraged by the pay-per-view things and all this type of stuff, and I kind of let my emotions get the best of me sometimes, whereas Lynden comes at every situation a lot more even keel. He thinks about things, and he has the experience within the sport at multiple levels to really explain the reasons behind things. And, frustration is born in the unknown. When we understand the reasons for something, even if we don't agree with them, they can help to alleviate that frustration. So I really appreciate the way Lynden always explains things and breaks things down in a really logical and practical way. And take also into account, I always learn a ton about multiple things when I talk to him. So it's always so much fun for me. I'm sure you guys would have enjoyed that just as much as I did. So as always, guys, I have got the links to Lynden's channel and his social media and Instagram and all that type of thing in the description of this episode. So if you want to get on and follow along with Lynden directly and all the content that he produces, you can do so by jumping onto those links below. So guys, I'm taking some inspiration from Lynden. He is one of, as I said in the introduction, he is one of the most prolific boxing creators in the country. There's so much content that he pumps out between Boxing Deep Dive and also his other show, Walking Boxing, which is, I think he does it every single day, I believe. I'm taking a leaf out of Lynden's book. He's inspired me. And as I mentioned, guys, this actually wasn't the episode that I said we were coming back for. This was a bonus episode. So the episode that we were still coming back for before Teofimo Shakur is still happening. So we'll be back in a matter of days, guys. This has been the biggest January this show's ever had. Can I keep it up for the whole year? Only time will tell. But I shall be back in a couple of days, hopefully. So, guys, if you want to get in contact with me, you can email the pod at tuscpod@gmail.com. Or if you want to throw a tweet at me, you can do that at delivery_man2. Also got the Instagram page, guys, if you want to follow along there. And also the YouTube channel, if you guys want to follow along with that one too. Because, yeah, planning on dropping a lot more episodes and content this year. God, that word content sounds weird, doesn't it? But trying to drop more episodes this year. I'm going to stick with the episodes, guys. But yeah, so moving forward, what that will probably do, I'm imagining, if I'm releasing episodes more frequently, I imagine that there'll be less topics to cover. So the episodes might actually end up being a little bit shorter, I think. I don't actually know this yet, but I think. But I don't know. Is that a bad thing? I'm not sure. You guys want to hit me up with some thoughts? I don't really think it matters too much, but yeah, I don't know. It was just something someone asked me in real life, actually, a mate of mine. And I was like, oh yeah, would that even affect anything? I think our average is about an hour, 20 minutes. We tend to sort of teeter either side of. So I imagine if I do maybe 2 or 3 episodes a month, it'll probably be down closer to an hour, 50 minutes, an hour, something like that. I don't really see an issue with that. If anyone else does, hit me up. Maybe I can, again, take some inspiration out of Lynden's book and think of another idea or a segment that I can do solo at the end of the pod, or I don't know, whatever. We'll think of some things, but I just love chatting to people. So we'll stick with that for the time being. So guys, we've got an awesome fight to look forward to this weekend. We've got an crazy weekend coming up on the 1st of February Australian time, which will drop another episode then. So I'll save my thoughts for that weekend then, guys, and I will be talking to you very soon. So enjoy the fights, and I'll chat to you then.
Well, let's travel, man up the chain. Living like there's no tomorrow, then tomorrow came. Going all out. I was living like there's no tomorrow, then tomorrow came. I got the wake up call, laughing through the window frame.